because the heat of the sun has two advantages. First of all, it will dry and take away the water content that would cause the product to degenerate. And secondly, the ultraviolet rays of the sun are the perfect method to kill all bacteria and funguses and things which would be living in the product itself if we weren't able to destroy them and make sure that it was sterilized. So we allow the sun to actually do most of the sterility. There then becomes some things that we have to try and fix up after the fact. But we have, first of all, a powder ground down to a very fine factor, which is what we're currently going to be using in our products. And we will have the enzymes all in them as opposed to the present when the enzymes are removed by the heating. Now, the other thing that is important is that in the past products called, quote, whole food products, there was the white central portion of the mangosteen that was included in the mix. We have excluded that. In other words, we've extracted, after washing the mangosteen, we have extracted the petiole, the little piece of green part that attaches it to the tree, because it has little utilitarian value. And we've removed all of the white part, which is the actual sugar, because we're not looking for sugar. And in the past, we were forced, because of the preparation, to have sugar in it, which was probably close to the equivalent of what you might find in, of course, it's fructose. It wasn't just regular sugar, sucrose, but it was at very high levels, approaching the kinds of things that you might see in a soft drink. And we've been able to totally eliminate that by removing the portion of the fruit that contained the sugar only, and only 2 xanthones. So of the multiple xanthones, and there are over 70 of them now identified, only 2 of them were in the white portion of the fruit. And they were mixed so closely to sugar that we felt it was worth the sacrifice of removing the mangosteen, the white portion, to get rid of the sugar, because the sugar is not anything that we require in terms of the nutritive value. We were also enhancing the nutritive value by making sure that we're drying it with the sun, keeping it sterile. And the first package has gone through the customs, and I'm going to be sending the second. I have 2 more packages of these, the large part here. And the reason what we're sending that, in addition to the powder, is because that is a chipped preparation, again, only with the heat of the sun, completely dried with the heat of the sun, but a chipped preparation that can be put through a process of extraction called a hypercritical CO2 extraction. And we've already put a very small amount that we were able to obtain through that process. And when we tried to measure the xanthones, the lab, which had promised us the results a week after it got a hold of the material, contacted us and said, guess what, guys? We can't give you the values that we promised you because it's off the scale, 3 times off the scale. So we have to be able to adjust our scales on our machines to 3 times, and that's going to require a technician to come in and set up the analysis of the machines, because we've never seen xanthones this high. So that's the story about what we were able to get in the first little instance. And we now have a better substrate, more appropriate chipped size to take this out. Now, we're still at the experimental stage in this, in that the product which we receive when we get the extract is largely a wax and extremely high concentrated. And we now have to be able to nano-size that to be able to maximize the amount of power that will be present, because a nano-sized product is going to be multiple thousands of times, in fact, a full order of magnitude smaller than the particle which is in the powder. So even though the powder itself has all of the enzymes that we did not have before and is more potent in terms of the content of xanthones than anything that we have been able to access on the market before, this nano-sized product that we have been able to get an extract from is literally hundreds of times more powerful than anything that we have had before. Now, this is the third iteration. I want you to understand that as we work through this process of making sure that we have the very best product in the world, we're making sure, first of all, that we're keeping all of the enzymes and all of the proteins and vitamins that are present in the natural product. We are eliminating the sugar and the central portion of it. So already we have something that's very, very different, but we have it in a macro form that is stronger than anything that's ever been on the market before. Even if we were to just put that in capsules or put it into sticks, we could do that right now, and in fact are doing it. However, the powder that we're using in the new core, which gives us higher values of mangosteen than has ever been existing in any product in the marketplace before. But that is still bereft of the enzymes which we are preserving through this new process. Now, we're really reinventing the wheel, and that's why it's been taking me so long to get this done, because it's cottage industry. I've had to be able to get the grinders, do the drying, and do everything, and now I'm going to have to be able to set that up for the next mangosteen harvest, where we're going to be literally bringing in tons of the product and shipping it for processing directly from here, either to the United States or to China, depending on which one of the two nano-sizing processes that we use, because we have two processes where we have rendered the mangosteen to the nano size. And by the way, all of the drugs which are on the market today, talking about pharmaceuticals, are all virtually at nano or pico size. So all we're doing is, in a sense, catching up with the size advantage of drugs, because all the chemical interaction that takes place in the body takes place at the surface of the molecule. And therefore, when you render the size of the molecule smaller, the agglomeration of the various portions of molecules, and when you render them smaller, you move exponentially to a higher degree of value. Let me give you a bit of an example of that. If you were to take the volume of a soccer ball and you were to keep that in macro size, you would have all of the interaction that would be taking place on that presumably soccer ball size particle at the surface of the soccer ball. Now, if you were to render that soccer ball mass into pieces that were the size of peas, you would move from a surface of 2.5 square feet to the equivalent of 4 football fields. So that's how big that would be if you just moved it down to the size of peas. Now, if you'd moved it down to the size of BBs, you are now rendering the surface area of that same 2.5 square foot surface of molecules. You're moving it to the size of the superficial surface of the state of Utah. And if you move it down even smaller to nano size, which is another order of magnitude lower, you are removing it to a surface area that is equivalent to the Western United States. So that's the kind of multiples that we're looking at in terms of being able to do this. And it's why I'm making an appeal to the M.Network to, one, be patient with the fact that we have at the present time in the current format an imperfect but still better product than anyone has ever had on the marketplace with mangosteen content to it, doing remarkable things and producing the kind of protection that we expect from the mangosteen, and such tremendous anecdotal information that I wish I could spend an hour reading the very extraordinary stories that I am receiving from the field from the effects of the CoreAO in the old form. So what are we going to see in the new form? First of all, we're going to see an amplified effect from the CoreAO, so that we will have not only the strongest product out there, but we're going to have things that are going to produce tremendous information and response. And how do we know that? Well, I've had some human volunteers, a number of us, so not just 5 or 6, but a number of human volunteers that have been taking greater amounts of mangosteen powder than any human being has ever taken before. And the curious thing is that even though we are these human guinea pigs, there has never been an adverse reaction as a result of the tremendous amounts that we're taking, which are 15 to 20 times more than any mangosteen that's ever been taken before. So that it's showing us that not only do we not get apparent side effects, but while we're waiting for the animal testing, because that's going to take 3 months, and we're in the process of starting up that animal testing as of this group of information, that this product information that I've got, we're going to hopefully be able to work with that at nano size and be able to prove that there is absolute safety for using doses of the mangosteen that are literally multiple times greater than anything we've used. And using it in the macro form, which is a less potent form, we've had absolutely no adverse effects, and we have had tremendous side effects in the sense that people who are diabetic, who have had nephropathy, are giving us reports that their nephropathy is regressing. There's never been a drug that has been able to do that. We cannot, of course, make claims to that yet because we've only had incidental stories, and these are anecdotal. So they are and do have value, but they don't have the same kind of value that would allow us to make claims, and we're down the road from that. But this is so exciting that if we can meet all of the challenges, and I don't want to simplify things by telling you that there are no challenges. There, of course, are challenges, because the whole of the industry, which is producing mangosteen for the world, does not use the same process that we are using. And to be able to ramp up and get what we require in the quantities that we want is really a gigantic task. But we've already rendered it to nano size in 2 formats. So you need to know that we've taken it down to the nano size using 2 separate formats of nano sization. So we do have the power, we do have the content. We're trying to be able to take the testing steps that are going to be required for us to prove absolute safety, and then be able to move on to human experimentation in the M.Lab format with this wonderful product. And some other striking things have happened that I'm not at liberty to produce or to tell you about yet, but the application of the mangosteen to human health is only one segment of a very, very broad market. And we are working on other aspects of health for animals using the mangosteen, which is going to just literally blow the lid off things when we have that product developed. So that's where we are. The new product is out. I received misinformation, and possibly it's because I've been here in Thailand, and it's also because of the methods by which we have a couple of groups of people that are providing us information regarding stockpiling. we want to make sure that we've got enough of the product that we never sort of run into back order. And in order to do that, we had more of the older product available, and it's finally been exhausted, and the new product is now being shipped. I had been given misinformation and told that we were already shipping the product 4 weeks ago. That was not correct. The product is now being shipped. What we were shipping before was the world's strongest mangosteen product, so don't have any kind of worries or concerns that we were shipping something inferior. We were not. And we will not ever move back from that benchmark. I'm not in the business of making comparisons. I like the methods that the car makers have. They don't bother to compare their products to other products in a pejorative way. All they say is, we have the very best, and this is why it's the best. And so that's what I'm saying to you, is that we have the very best mangosteen product on the market today. It allows Dr. Templeman to sleep at night knowing that he is associated with the organization that is keeping his promises to the field of people who have received tremendous benefit from the mangosteen. We are producing the most potent mangosteen product in existence at the present time, but you ain't seen nothing yet. Okay.
That's exciting. I'll tell you that's, and I think that's something that a lot of people didn't realize, is that the core that we have that's being shipped right now actually is a kind of a version 2.0, I guess you could say, of
right.
What
The differences between it and the 1.0 is that we had a sweetener in there from fructose. In other words, a fruit sweetener. And we have eliminated that and moved to an unrefined cane sugar sweetener, simply because we received complaints from the field of two natures. One, people had bad reactions to fructose, in the sense, not that it did terrible things to anybody, but they just didn't like the idea of using large amounts of fructose. And it wasn't large amounts. We were talking 2 grams. So it isn't as if you were chugging down a whole sack of fructose. That is not what was happening. But people had controversial feelings about fructose. We removed the fructose and put something less controversial in. But know this, we're constantly experimenting with different sugar substitutes. And currently I have the scientist using another form from chicory that we are experimenting with. And if it turns out to have greater value, we will use that. This company is committed to making as many changes as we have to each time that the science rolls ahead of where we are and we get a better potential product. We're going to do that. So this one has pure unrefined cane sugar, no more than the fructose that was in it before, but we have removed the fructose that people had bad feelings about, and we've also removed the carrageenan, or the Irish moss extract, which was something that there is a slight cross reactivity to folks who may have gluten-induced enteropathy. And so as a result, we removed that. It didn't make any difference to the taste. We were able to use gum arabic, something much less controversial. So you've got a tremendous product. You need to know that it's going to remain. This product will never disappear. It will be the product par excellence of mangosteen plus antioxidants for the values that those particular combinations bring. And then we will be bringing even more potent mangosteen, pure mangosteen products to market as soon as the feasibility exists. And again, we have testing to be doing, and we have to be able to set into place the manufacturing process that has never existed. We're really going back to the basics and having this stuff dried in the sun exactly the same way that the people who have been using it in natural medicine have been doing it for years. We're going back to the basics. We thought it was going to be harder than it was, but it's still not without complications. However, the promise remains there. And Dr. Templeman, as the Mangosteen MD, sleeps well every night knowing that I am in the company that is producing the best mangosteen product without a doubt in the world.
That is so wonderful. So I'll tell you, it is so good to hear just the credibility and the encouragement around our products, and knowing that when we say, when you hear Dr. Templeman say, be patient with us as we're making adjustments to our product here. It's not because we have something inferior, just like he said. It's so that we have the best. But the thing is, we know that there's another step that can actually be taken with science and with everything else that's involved that can give us the best product around that helps. And so mangosteen, the question that was asked, and just to clarify here, Dr. Templeman, was we can say that core with the mangosteen in it, that the mangosteen helps with anti-inflammation. Does mangosteen does that? It's an anti-inflammatory?
The mangosteen is, in my opinion, without a doubt, and there have been some older tests that were done against actual drugs that are in the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, well, actually in the steroidal anti-inflammatory category. In other words, when someone has a car accident and their brain has been badly damaged, we do two things. We put them into an artificial coma so that their brain does not swell. We drop their their temperature of the body, and we keep them in a coma while the brain heals itself, because otherwise it would swell to the point of death through a process called coning. And so we use the most powerful anti-inflammatories in the marketplace pharmacologically in order to get this done IV. Now, that's what happens in ICUs. What we have done in laboratories, and these are not new, is that we've taken those exact same drugs and compared them to the mangosteen in inflammation models of rabbit paws, and have found that with regard to the inflammation model of a rabbit paw, that we have equivalent, if not greater, anti-inflammation from this natural product as we do from this drug, which is used in ICUs. So very, very striking stuff. Certainly not to the point in terms of repeated expertise so that we could make claims as a result of this. But I'm telling you that this particular in vivo study using live animals was done a number of years ago in a very reputable lab and has never been surpassed.
Awesome. That is great. Well, Dr. Templeman, we are so glad that you finally were able to make it on, and we can't wait to get you back into the United States. Thailand, I know they're glad to have you there, but we're glad to have you back home.
Well, when I get back home, AJ, it has been difficult for me to maintain the kind of control over the changes that are required. By the way, we're making changes in a number of our products. But in order to be able to make those changes, I need to be more hands-on. And so I will not be leaving the country for 6 months after I get back. And then I will be coming to supervise some of the animal studies and look at the results of them. But I'm not going to be leaving the country. I'm staying hands-on and making sure that we have the attention given to the development of our products and the improvement of our products the way that they need to be, so that we can always be completely proud of what we have on the market.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Templeman. So again, thank you all for being on the doctor's call tonight.